Thank you, Alex. Appreciate it. Good morning, all. First, I want to thank you guys for being here today, for joining our breakout session today. As we try to address, we're going to address some of the barriers and things that our students, our justice impacted students face, or system impacted students face after they obtain either like a certificate or a degree and ready to go into the workforce. Well, due to our background, some of us may have some convictions there that could be erased or taken off your record prior to looking for work. And so that's the part that I'm going to be talking on. Again, good morning. My name is Rafael Montano. I work at Imperial Valley College. I work for the Restorative Justice Program there on campus, which actually we provide education opportunities to formerly incarcerated students, currently incarcerated students at both Calipatria and Centinela prisons, and also at the local jail. And then we have the ones that are coming out, transitioning into the society, and that continue to go to school, the ones that are here locally. And so we embrace them and we try to foster them and pretty much guide them. And I personally, myself, take this program it's very special to me. And so I like to take these guys and ladies also by the hand, so to speak, and help them in their educational journey. With that being said, I'm going to go ahead and start. I'm going to be talking about clearing records today, again, as I had mentioned. And some of this information that I'm going to be sharing is there we go. So it's a relief provided pursuant to Penal Code Section 1203.4 for the most part. There are many subdivisions in that 1203.4 that cover expungements and clearing your records. And so here we go. So again, I wanted to start by addressing some of the services that we provide here on campus for our justice impacted students. And so the first thing that I would do is I refer them to their probation officer. Here in our county, probation takes the lead and they actually conduct the investigation. They help the client or the probationer who's actually pretty much should be done with probation. They help them fill out the petition and they file it with the court. There is a fee. So once the student gets all that paperwork filled out, they can bring that to me, and I myself am the one that will create a PO to have a check cut to the probation department, and that will pay for each case. I think we pay about $40 per case, and that's what the fee is. After that, again, so I'll refer them to the Career Services Center and then share with them employment opportunities. And also what we do here on campus is some of the students that are system impacted, we like to, we have grants and we like to hire them. I was one of those students myself that was hired at IVC as a work study. And so on the job training and things like that are very important and critical, I think. And so let me go to my next slide. I'm sorry, guys, I'm a little nervous. I know I'm rambling a little bit. Okay. So the first step that you need to do is to get a rap sheet. In the state, you can get it from the Department of Justice, of course. It's a live scan, what's called a live scan. That arrives in 1 week. But at the county level, if a student has most of his system impacted convictions here locally, then they can go here for the county. They can go to the sheriff's office and get their rap sheet. And that's going to have the convictions there. It's going to have the case number and all pertinent information that needs to go on the paperwork. I'll remove this. Okay. And so the local one, as you can see here, is usually more complete than the state rap sheet because it is local. Sometimes the data in the state system is not entirely accurate. One thing, as you can see that it's highlighted in red, to make sure that there's no warrants pending before you go to the sheriff's office, because you don't want to get some nice shiny bracelets as you're trying to leave the sheriff's office, right? That'd be step one. After you get your rap sheet, I need to, first of all, or second of all, I want to give thanks to the Record Clearance Project. The Record Clearance Project is a project based out of San Jose State University. It is headed by Miss Margaret Stevenson. She is a lawyer there, and they have a this program where they are really trying to help remove the barriers and help out our students that, you know, really need to get to work after we obtain a degree or certificate. So the following information here applies to California state for the most part. Everything here is going to be California law. Expungements, of course, are dismissals of convictions. It's got to be a jail sentence, including 1170H, which covers later some charges that were reduced. And the realignment of sentencing is the AB 109, the Assembly Bill, where the local jails had to, instead of sending people that were convicted to prison, now they do their time locally up to 15 years. And so that's what that does. That's what that did. And so the second thing that I'm going to talk about is reducing felonies to misdemeanors, and that's covered by Prop 47. Prop 47, I'm not sure if you guys remember, we voted on it a few years back, and that was to remove what we considered serious aggravated felonies from the list. And it's been getting, Prop 57 was the first rollout. This is a second rollout. And it's a good thing for our special populations. What I'm not going to cover here today is the certificate of rehabilitation. And the certificate of rehabilitation is when you get a prison sentence. And so those may not have a PC 1170A or H next to it. And so you may not be able to have that dismissed. So you'll need a certificate of rehabilitation and sealing. Sealing your case is for certain drug diversions. When you complete a drug diversion case, you don't get a conviction. It just sits there, but you have to get it actually sealed to remove it off the record entirely. Cases involving factual innocence, juvenile offenses especially. This is very important. Many people think that as a juvenile, if you commit a delinquency, because it's not crime, it's delinquency, you think that when you're 18, it goes away automatically, and it does not. So it is very important to get that record sealed immediately as a juvenile. Again, so an expungement, what it does, it actually withdraws the plea of guilty that you had entered or dismisses the convictions. And so they are either required by law under 1203.4 to be either dismissed or reduced. And then the other one is when it's discretionary. That's when the judge has to decide. And so that depends on the sentence and what happened after the sentence. In other words, probation. Was he successful in completing probation? So the general summary of expungement laws is as goes. 1203.4, as I mentioned earlier, jail sentences with probation. So local jail, no prison sentence. 0.4a, jail sentences without probation. So you could get sentenced to a 30-day max time, no probation, terminal disposition. That would be covered under that. 1203.41, that's the realignment of sentencing that I was talking about. And so a lot of those serious aggravated felonies are now not considered that. And so that was the first rollout for the realignment of sentencing. 1203.42. So this is the 1170H that we're talking about. Due to this realignment of sentencing, the conviction now has Penal Code Section 1170H and the sentence for the specified conviction, which allows for the expungement. Please note Many sex and child pornography offenses cannot be dismissed. Those are still, some of those are still considered serious aggravated felonies. And then some of those sexual offenses have been removed as well. So in October 2011, the law turned non-serious, non-violent, non-sex offenses that used to be state prison sentences into ones to be served in county jail. As I mentioned earlier, all convictions would now have the 1170H as part of the sentence are eligible for expungement. Oops, I'm so sorry, guys. Okay. So a person can file for expungement after, when they're not serving time, they're not on probation anymore or parole, and they have no charges pending. And on the bottom there are the cases that govern these laws and rules. And then so owing money to the county does not bar expungements. So if they have outstanding fees, they think, hey, you know what, I won't be able to do this. I haven't even paid the fine. That's not true. And so the court can also forgive balances for fines and fees due at the clearance hearing. Include this request in the expungement papers filed. Explain why waiver is needed. So hardship, of course, would be one. Making small regular payments when one is able can help with the later request to waive the balance of fines and fees. So they'll see that you're actually making an effort, and so that will help out. Okay, so this is some of the things that do not change after an expungement. So these are for the serious felonies. Still counts as a strike if it previously counted as a strike. Firearm bans remain unchanged. So for the most part, if one is convicted of a felony, they are not allowed to own or carry a firearm. Sex offender registration remains unchanged for the most part. That is a lifetime registry, and it really puts a hamper on people's records. Hopefully that'll change in the future. Driver's license suspension remains unchanged and still counts as a prior. So what does change after expungement? So this is the good things that come out of this. So, right, expungement often helps with what? Employment, housing. It's like qualify for social programs. Many programs require you to have no drug convictions, or if you do, you have to do like a rehabilitation, provide proof of all that. Family unification, immigration, student loans, civil rights, fundamental fairness, and dignity value. But so immigration laws are different from state laws, and so you should always check with an immigration attorney before proceeding to determine possible consequences. There are certain laws that will disqualify you from, or will qualify for a deportation. And so you got to be careful with that. But any lawyer will always go over that before you enter into any plea. I wish I didn't have this up here. Can I do this? Okay. Again, expungements are dismissals of convictions for jail and probation and 1170H sentences with the AB 109. Reducing felonies to misdemeanors. Again, I'm not going to cover certificates of rehabilitation or sealing. No, this one came out of order. Okay, so now I'm going to start talking about reducing felonies to misdemeanors and which ones actually would qualify. Let's see. Okay. So the summary of felony reduction rules. So this law under 17B, those are what's called a wobbler. A wobbler is called that because it can either be a misdemeanor or it could be a felony. And so, but again, jail only. The wobbler is a sentence listed and has jail or prison in it. Remember I said it could be felony or misdemeanor. 1170H again. Proposition 47 is jail plus 2 parts. So it could be a drug possession or theft related, but it can't be grand theft. It's got to be 950 or less. And it's Prop 64. Where did that go? There it is. So Prop 64 covers all the marijuana related offenses now and convictions, including sales that can be reduced as well. Why is it important to reduce a felony conviction? So even though a case is dismissed, reducing a felony to a misdemeanor can help with what? Regaining firearm privileges again. Maybe one of them wants to go into the military. And so that is a big one there. If you had the felony, but now you can get it reduced, you will be able to regain firearm privileges. Again, immigration. Many felonies will easily disbar you from being in the States. Public housing, again, remember I talked about drug felonies. Student loans, when you apply for a student loan, the first thing they ask is, do you have any drug convictions? They don't ask felony, they ask drug convictions. I'm not so sure why, but that's what they're usually looking at. Family reunification, and then you can visit people in custody. I have to share that with my background, my brother had done some time and I was never able to visit him. Sadly, he passed away 8 years ago, but that's another story. And again, occupational licensing. So if you're trying to get a credential or a state license from the state of California and you have a felony conviction, that is going to automatically disbar you from receiving that occupational license. So again, this is why it's important to reduce those felonies to misdemeanors after the dismissal. How am I doing so far, guys? Am I going too fast?
I think you're good, Rafa.
All right, cool. Does anybody know how to remove this banner from here? Okay. Again, many of the felonies that are sentenced to jail are wobblers. Those jail felonies are eligible to be reduced to misdemeanors using Penal Code Section 17B. So usually you'll see that the conviction was under, you'll have a little UN under 17B, and that's what qualifies that to be a misdemeanor. And so that's going to allow it to be reduced. To see if a felony is a wobbler, look up whether the current sentence for the offense includes jail or prison. There it is. So some examples of some of the wobblers are, of course, grand theft. That could be under 17B. Auto theft, domestic violence. That's going to depend on the severity of injuries, if there are any. And DUI with injury also. Severity of the injuries will determine if it's going to be filed or eligible to be under 17B. Prop 64, this is a really important one because now with the legalization of recreational and medical cannabis, many people have suffered convictions for this type of charge. Prop 64 can improve records for many marijuana-related offenses, reduce some felonies, seal some convictions if the conviction was for violation of health and safety code section. 11357, which is possession, cultivation, 11358. Possession with intent to sell, 11359 and 11360. Back in the day when I was growing up, 11358, 359, and 360 were pretty serious offenses. 357 could have been a simple possession as a misdemeanor or felony. That would be a wobbler right there. So different rules apply if people are under age 21 are involved or present, if offense occurred on school or daycare. So the summary of felony, where'd it go? Felony reduction. That's this one here. Okay. Wait, did we do this one already? Is that it? I'm sorry, guys. Bear with me real quick. Yeah, okay. And so the summary of felony conviction rules, the laws apply. Again, the 17B has to be just jail, local jail, not prison. That can be reduced. Prop 47, that one must be reduced. And Prop 64, any marijuana related, or the ones with the 1170, which again was the realignment of sentencing. It was a felony conviction, but the sentence was done at the local jail, and that's what qualifies it for that. So for any additional information, you may contact Ms. Margaret Stevenson. She's at San Jose State University, and she runs a record clearance project. There is a lot more information out there that she can cover with you. Also, like I said, for those tough cases that may require a little bit more footwork, I should say, or arguing, show good cause, she can help out with that. She's got a team of some wonderful students that are, I can see them aspiring to be great defense lawyers. So she has this criminal record clearing in a nutshell. Again, it is full of information. It is extensive information. She can help you understand a lot of the information there, and also help out any student that needs the help, the assistance. Right now during COVID, so the record clearance project is providing services by phone only and video. They hope to be back in person as soon as it is safe to do so, but there's their website. Also, with the sheriff here locally, it's a probation department. The public defenders used to be able to represent you if you were indigent for the relief under 1203.4. I'm not sure if they are still representing it. It doesn't seem like you need a lawyer really, because of the laws where they must be reduced, and then the ones that are discretionary. And so that's where you may need a lawyer, but at the end of the day, there are forms out there that are readily for us just to fill them out. It's a petition. So again, laws change, individual cases differ. And because of this, legal procedures change. Please check to be sure that the information here is current at the time that we are utilizing it. So again, you may want to contact her. And so I think this is going to be it for me. What we like to do after expungement, of course, I like to refer the students again to the Career Services Center, where they do like job readiness, they do resume building, they conduct mock interviews. We have a career closet where we can provide professional dress clothes for the interviews. And we also, we have partnership with potential employers to see where, for the most part, for career technical education, what is the need? I was listening to the keynote speaker, has the need for careers is changing. And today, so I'm actually wearing my career technical education because I came from that department. I used to do construction before I went into the professional field. And actually, I do miss it. I believe that it is very important skill set to have these days. And it is very important, as she said, for parents like me to understand that my children, hey, maybe don't want to go to college. Maybe they just want to go to work. And I do have one child that's like that. With that, I think I'm ready to hand it off to Genaro, where he's going to cover the job readiness part and the work and services that we provide here.
Rafael, can I ask you to keep control of the slides and help me with that? I think it'll be easier for me.
Totally. Got you.
Thank you, sir. So good morning, everybody. My name is Genaro Ayala. I'm the
Hold on, Genaro, are you sharing your screen or are they still looking at my screen?
They're still looking at your screen. If you can just click as needed. Thank you. Thank you, Rafa.
Sorry about that.
Again, good morning. My name is Genaro Ayala. I'm the Job Placement Case Manager for Imperial Valley College. And today I'm going to be discussing what we do for our students, and in this case, the justice impacted students. Although I will tell you that a lot of what we do for them overlaps for what we do for other students. Can we go to the next slide, Rafael? Oh, fancy. Cool. So as Rafael was mentioning, when students are referred to us, we do a number of things initially. And the first thing is we do a quick assessment of their needs and goals. So we want to identify, what is it that they want to do? What is it that they need to do? Those are two very different things. In that assessment, we try to determine, among other things, their level of readiness. And this is both true for their technical readiness, meaning their ability to do the job that they're looking for, and also their personal readiness, right? Do they have any barriers that are gonna be impacting their ability to be successful at their job? And so once we identify those barriers, we have some discussions about how to possibly overcome them, whether it be an availability barrier or a transportation barrier, or a child care barrier, or things beyond that. If those are things that we can address or help them overcome, we do it. And if we need to refer them to other departments within the campus or other agencies within the community, well, then we do that. Our ultimate goal is that when we send them out when we place them, we want them to be successful. So we want all these possible issues to be resolved before they're in front of the employer. Next slide, please. So once we've completed that assessment, we do offer various pre-employment workshops. First one is the resume, cover letter, and reference sheets. And let me say that our goal is to do much more than just helping them build a resume. There's different places or sites that they can go to do that, Winway, CalJobs, and they can very easily come up with some very cookie cutter resumes. Our goal is to go beyond that and really help them understand what is a resume. How does an employer use that resume? Not only to determine who's going to move forward in that hiring process, but also who isn't and why, right? And so I personally use my experience as a prior business owner, prior business manager, and a prior human resource manager to kind of give them that look behind the curtain. And our hope is that if we teach the student this thought process, tomorrow when maybe they're not with us at the campus or something like that, and they're having to revise their resumes and things like that, they're still using that thought process to really make their resume as impactful as possible. So we also do job searching strategies. Obviously a lot of it is done online. What does that look like? What search engines should they be using, and which ones should they not be using, because they can be, cause major headaches. I don't know if any of you have had experience with that. Also, how to look for a job in person, right? I tell people the newspaper, there's still some wanted ads right there that says, but you don't have to go buy it every day, buy the Sunday one, and things of that nature. We talk to them about their networking, help them identify their current network, identify how do they expand that? And then how do they leverage that network to help them find a job? We talk to them about professionalism and customer service. In customer service, a lot of us think of customer service when a client walks in the door to purchase a product or a service. However, it goes beyond that. We talk to them about that, but also about how our peers are also our customers, right? Today, those of you in this breakout session are my customers and Rafael's, and we're trying to provide you a good service, right? Tomorrow, when I reach out to one of you to ask you a question in your field of expertise, then we become your customer and you're providing service to us. So we also talk about that dynamic. We also do mock interviews, which is an important piece, and we really try to do structured mock interviews that really increase their anxiety, because we want them to experience that anxiety there, and then we provide them with constructive feedback, and then we repeat the process so that when they do have a true opportunity, they can truly try to maximize that opportunity and hopefully knock it out of the park and land that next job. Next slide, please. So once we've covered those initial bases, there are different tools that we can use to assist in the placing of our students who have been impacted by the justice system, right? One of them is the State of California Fidelity Bonding Program. And basically what this is a bonding service that helps alleviate the concerns of employers when they are looking to hire ex-offenders or at-risk job applicants, right? And it does this by providing insurance for employers against possible theft and dishonest, fraudulent acts. And this really goes a long way. If you're as an employer, those might be very legitimate concerns that you have. And this says, if that were to happen, there's an insurance here. I've gone as far as to tell the employers, if you hire anybody, anyone else that is not under this targeted group, there is no insurance, and that can still happen, right? People make mistakes all the time, even if they haven't done so in the past or they haven't been caught in the past. So this is really a comforting thing for employers, and it really goes a long way. So this program or this bonding is offered to employers and job seekers at no cost to them. And resources for this can be found at the different job centers of California throughout the state, which is used to be called the One Stop. Next, Rafa. So who's eligible for this bonding, right? So obviously, people that have been impacted by the justice system, but additionally, they need to be authorized to work in the United States. So citizens or legal residents, they have to have a job offer with a reasonable expectation of permanence, meaning long-term, right? The idea is this is a long-term employment. If it's seasonal work, this will not apply. So it's important to keep that in mind. It also requires that the position requires bonding, and so that is going to be in how that position is offered. And what they're looking for here is that it almost needs to be a policy. If the employer is hiring this targeted people from this targeted group, it should be a policy that they do it for everybody, or that it is a requirement. And so it's got to be in writing for this bonding to be able to take effect. Another point is that the applicant needs to be qualified for the job, meaning we're not going to place somebody as a welder that has never welded or knows nothing about welding, right? There's got to be some relevancy there from their education or experience, so that they can be successful again at that employment. It does not apply to self-employed or owner-operator, and the applicant must be 18 years of age or older. Next slide, please. So the coverage amounts are $5,000, $10,000, and $15,000. I will tell you that the $15,000 is in a case-by-case basis. The more common ones are the $5,000 and $10,000 bonds that are readily available. Next slide, please, Rafa. So the coverage lasts for 6 months from the date it is issued. It can be canceled and started later. It cannot be terminated or transferred to another employee. If after the 6 months, the employer, the employment relationship is going to continue, and the employer still feels that they want to have that coverage, they can go ahead and purchase continuing coverage at the normal commercial rates, right? What I tell employers is that within the first 6 months, you should have a good sense of whether this person has shown honesty and integrity and responsibility, the good fit for your team, and that hopefully a sense of trust has also been developed, so that they can make a decision to continue the relationship, hopefully without having to purchase that additional coverage. But it is an option out there if we need it. So that's on the bonding part. Another of the tools that are available out there for working with justice impacted students are called work opportunity tax credits, WOTC credits, okay? And there's different segments of the population that are impacted by these credits. So WOTC credits promote the hiring of individuals who qualify as members of a targeted group, right? And basically, these are incentives for the employer to hire people in particular groups. And the tax credits can be up to $9,600 per employee. Next slide, please. So which target groups are impacted by this? As you can see, there's quite a few. For the purpose of our conversation today, it's Group C, ex-felons hired no later than a year after conviction or release from prison. But you can see that a whole different level of segments of the population can qualify for this. And this is what I meant when some of these services overlap into different populations. Next slide, please, Rafa. The credit amounts can be up to 40% of the qualified first-year wages, which in this case is up to, for these groups, including Group C, is up to $6,000. This is if the employee is retained for at least 400 hours, which 400 hours is, I think it's about 10 weeks of unemployment. If the employee is retained for less than 400 hours, but over 103 hours, is 3 weeks, I believe, then the credit amount can be up to 25% of the qualifying first year's wages. So there's some variables there that we need to keep in mind. Next slide, please. So another tool that we use, and this is can be definitely used for students who are justice impacted, but it can be used for the general population also, is on-the-job training or OJT. And this is basically an awesome tool that really allows us to present our students, especially when they have barriers or things that employers would be concerned about, and really get the employer to give them a second chance, right? Its main point is that it provides reimbursement for wages. Now, the OJT is required that the employer hires the employee and puts them on their payroll, right? And so it really allows for development of knowledge and skills that will be essential to fulfilling the job responsibilities or job expectations. And it provides, like I said, the employer some reimbursement for the wages paid. Next slide, please, Rafa. So some of those benefits for the employer are up to 75% of the wages, hourly wages, depending on the qualifications. And so that variance is, if we're going to place a welders and somebody that has some welding experience and maybe a welding certificate and a welding job, then the reimbursement might not be as high because the learning curve is not as steep. But if we're putting somebody in a job that maybe they've never done before or have very little experience, but the employer said that this is something that could pick up on it quickly and they're willing to invest that time, then that reimbursement can go up to 75% because, again, it's just a sharper learning curve, right? Other benefits for the employer is that they make all the hiring decisions, just like if they were hiring anybody else. Through our services, employer can save on the recruiting, screening, and training process. And also the length of the training is negotiable. The length of the OJT is negotiable. And again, based on experience, prior experience and prior knowledge. OJT applicants are managed by the employer like a regular employee because that's really what they are. Next slide. So the final tool that we have for our students, including the justice impacted, is called a work experience or WEX program. And so this is more of a originally designed as an internship opportunity where the applicant comes in and is hired for a set amount of time, and there is no expectation of long-term employment as opposed to the OJT, right? And so that's kind of one of the differences, but I'll share with you kind of a spin that I put on this when I present to the employers. Next slide, please, Rafa. So this is for applicants. This applies to applicants that fall under certain categories, and those categories are little or no prior work experience, have difficulty obtaining or maintaining employment, or seeking long-term employment in a particular industry or occupation that does not have the required experience. And if you think about those 3 points, those are very relevant to our students in the justice impacted population, right? So this really covers them very, very well. Next slide. So this is really not meant to be long-term. It can be up to 1,054 hours, which I think it's 5.5 months. However, when I present this to an employer, it's because they have a staffing need. And I always said as an expectation that can't be enforced, but it's put out there, that after this is completed, they're going to bring on the employee into their payroll and they're going to keep him long-term. And so that has worked very, very well for us. Next slide, please, Rafa. So the final thing is this California First Chance Act, also known as Ban the Box. And this is talking about the box that appears on applications for some employers, asking them if they have like a prior criminal conviction. And there's really a movement to try to eliminate that and give our students a better chance of getting in front of the employer and making a case for themselves. We'll speak a little bit about that. Next slide. So the first chance process, it goes a little bit like this. On the individual evaluation, the company must look at you as an individual, right? And also, if it applies, whether the specific convictions are directly related to your job duties, and also, and second, how much time has passed since those convictions. If they make a job offer and after discovering that you have a record, they decide to take the job offer back, the employer must identify the specific convictions it has a problem with. That wasn't always true. So this is very helpful for people to try to overcome those issues. And the company must give you a copy of the background, which again, that wasn't true either. And that caused a lot of frustrations. As an HR manager, a few years back, I saw that firsthand. Next slide, Rafa. So this allows you to come up with a response, and you have a certain amount of time, 5 business days, come up with a response and write some evidence, or evidence of errors, or proof that you have done things to change your life, right? The company then needs to reevaluate the situation, taking into consideration these things that you've submitted, and then they need to provide a final written notification of your rights to file a complaint with the government about their decision if they still decided not to hire you because of your background. So this is I think it's a world of difference for people that are really trying to change their life around, where before they would just be told that's all they need. We're not clear to proceed was the term, and that's all you were told, and that was very, very frustrating. Next slide. So the things that are definitely are off limit to most employers. Notice it says most. They can't ask you about the following off-limit information, and if they accidentally become aware of it, they can't use it against that decision-making process. So some of those things are arrests that did not result in convictions unless the case is still open. Marijuana-related convictions older than 2 years, and arrests and convictions that have been sealed, dismissed, expunged, erased. Some of the things that Rafael was talking about earlier, and then juvenile proceedings and court records. So those things should not be held against you when applying for a job. And then next, I think the last slide, Rafa. So very, very quickly, I will tell you that it really, a big piece of helping these students is really how we market them, right? It's going to the employer, understanding, listening and understanding to their concerns, finding a tactful way to remind them that everybody makes mistakes. I told an employer one time that the only difference between the applicant and me was that the applicant had gotten caught at one point in his life, and I hadn't, because I made mistakes growing up, and this is just trying to humanize these people and trying to change that snapshot in their life that does not represent all of their lives. And then we want to promote the benefits about hiring this individual, right? I was working with a population that was in a halfway house. And the employer told me, well, how do I know this guy won't come in under the influence or hangover or with lack of sleep because he's partying all day? Well, I says, Mr. Employer, he's in a halfway house. He's drug tested once a week. He has to be in his dorm by 8 p.m. And he's not allowed to party or do anything like that. I says, can you tell me if that is true for your other employees? And the answer is no, right? So there's some benefits depending on the situation, and it really has to do with how we spend that. Also, if they have relevant experience, I was working with an individual that was 7 years in prison, and those 7 years he works in a warehouse, and he became OSHA certified, forklift operator certified, and we were able to build a resume of 7 years of experience based on his job at the prison, and it really went a long way to help them get a job. And then finally, we have these things that we just discussed: the bonding, the WATI tax credit, the OJT, and the WEX program. That completes my presentation. We do want to allow a few minutes for questions, and Rafael and I would be happy to answer any that you might have. Thank you.
Thank you, Genaro. That was awesome.
Thank you, sir.
Can I make this full? I'm going to stop sharing the screen. There we are.
Cool.
And I'm just checking the chat. We had none coming on the chat. Just confirm.
Oh, we did an awesome job then.
Good. We covered everything. We covered everything. I wanted to add that at the end of the day. Oh, thank you, Pat.
Chat is disabled. The chat is disabled.
Is it?
Yes.
The
but
chat.
I did post the question in the questions and answers.
Do you have the Q&A, Alex?
I do. Yes, I apologize. So yes, we did disable the Zoom chat, but in the Q&A, how do you answer a student who asks how long will an expungement or clearance take?
So I can answer that question. It actually takes a few months. I was talking to a student the other day, and I forgot to share the story, a success story. Right before COVID hit, he came in with his 3 cases. Of course, we cut the check for the $120. He took it to probation. And just last weekend, he didn't know I was doing this presentation, and I had no idea. I had totally forgotten about it. He called me. He was ecstatic, and he said that all of his cases got expunged. Of course, he is working, not in the ideal field right now, but now that his cases are expunged, he is going to be looking into gainful long-term employment. And actually, I was able to convince him to come back to IVC to take advantage of some of the programs and services that we have for him, because he hasn't transferred yet. But so it does take 3 to 4 months, especially right now with COVID. The court system is congested and is backed up. And of course, the more serious cases take priority. But again, these are it's not a case where it's going to be heard in court, but it still takes, I want to say like 4 months. It actually took a little longer, 6 months. But again, I don't think he was pushing the issue along, and I just think he just waited till they responded to him. And so it is very important to follow through because time is of the essence. People in this population, as myself, you know, we need to stay busy, and having a job that keeps you busy is very important. I believe, you know, an idle mind is a devil's playground is very true for this population. And so we want to keep them busy.
Thank you.
Welcome, Patrick.
And that was the only one in the Q&A. I apologize again. Yes, I was looking at the wrong tab in the Whoova app.
Oh, this is Patrick again. I'll throw it out. I have students at the Vista Detention Center, and you know, you run into those who want to be a nurse or an EME or paramedic. And how do you address those students?
Okay, I can actually answer that, some part of that question, because I was working in the CalWorks department. And so many of our students were female, and many of them wanted to gravitate towards the nursing program. And so almost towards the end, and so you need to do your homework before. Remember I mentioned if you got a felony conviction, the state of California will not issue that professional license. And so she found out towards the end that she was not eligible, and so she was not going to be able to be a nurse. We're hoping that those laws change. Again, remember I talked about depending on the population or the people that you're going to be working with, depends on what type of convictions are going to be allowed. But for nursing, and she had a child endangerment conviction, and that disqualified her. So I'm not sure if we need to maybe train some of the counselors in that aspect, or maybe the student never shared that information. I knew that information because I worked in the legal system before I came to IVC for many years. And so I know that having a certain type of conviction or a felony conviction is going to disbar you from getting a professional state issued license.
You know, I was going to add that recently when California experiences these wildfires, I saw an article that featured a fireman, I think it was a fire captain at this point, who had a criminal record and had his record expunged, and then, you know, after struggling for many years not to be able to get in, was hired and obviously well now. And I thought that the point of the article was that California is looking to either change laws that would allow, you know, people, because they were actually having inmates helping them fight the fires, right? And so I think that's a very direct relevancy. I don't know if that will apply to other careers, but hopefully that's a kind of a starting point for these considerations to be taken.
One of the struggles for our nursing students, if they want to get into a nursing program, is that they have a hard time getting clinicals, getting hospitals to accept them to do clinicals.
That is exactly the case with the female I was referring to. When she got to her clinical stage, she was not allowed to work in that environment. Of course, she was devastated, but she stayed real positive and optimistic, and she was always like that. And so she just went into LVN, which is, I think, a level below the RN. And she was able to do that. So she's working at a, where they go to after they come out of the hospital, they're going to like into a rehabilitation or in a retirement home. Also, Patrick, I can refer you to our counselor here on campus, Ms. Stella Orfanos Wu. She is the expert in the field of nursing, and she can probably address any of those questions that you may have.
Okay, her first name is Estella, and the last name?
Stella.Orfanos. I can't put that in the chat.
That's okay. I'll probably look under their nursing program or something.
Stella.orfanos-wu@imperial.edu.
Okay, thanks.
And we are having a bunch of Q&A come through. So we have about 3 or 4 minutes left. So I'm going to try and read through 2 or 3 of them. And then if you all could address them. Are there additional fees associated with expungement beyond the initial filing fee? Another question is, how does a formerly incarcerated person answer the question of if they've ever been convicted of a felony or crime, and or how do they explain the gap on their resume?
So I would say on the second one, I
Yes.
think you have to be honest if, especially if it hasn't been expunged, right? I think you have to be honest, because if not, we place a lot of people at a detention center, a federal detention center here locally, and it was an awesome job for our area. Starting pay was close to $30 an hour, a ton of overtime, an extensive background because it was a federal contract. But they were bringing in people in without the full background being completed, and they asked this gentleman, and he said no, and he started to work. And 6 months later, he bought a new truck. Had bought, I think had left his apartment, moved into a house. And one day he showed up to work. They said, "Hey, you need to go to HR," and they escorted him out of the property because it initially came up that he had something in his background. Terminated. And I can't tell you for sure whether he was terminated because of the issue in his background or the fact that he didn't disclose it. So I think that, honesty, it really has got to be the best policy. And you have to speak about how, it's a mistake in a particular time in your life. And hopefully you can speak about what you have done to change that, and make us a case for yourself.
What was the first question again, Alex?
Is there additional fees beyond the initial filing fee?
No. So from what I know, it's the $40 flat fee per case to file it with the court. There is no additional fee. And then the good thing about this is that we may be able to get fines removed as well. So that's a big plus.
And I think that's all the Q&A, and we're close to time.
Thank you, everybody, for joining us and for your attention. We hope that we've brought some value to your day today.
Yes, definitely. Thank you guys for being here. And hopefully you guys could take some of this information to your students, share it with them, and let's get our students to work.
And Patrick, before you leave, the email address is in the chat if you need that.
Thank you, Alex.
Great, thanks.
Yeah. Yep. Y'all have a lovely day.
You guys have a good day.